Nora Hartley had always thought Phil Dawson was simply a kind neighbor. He brought her father meals on Sundays, drove him to the pharmacy when Nora could not make it, and called to check in more often than most family members would. She had thanked him for it. She had meant it genuinely. She stopped meaning it the afternoon a detective called to tell her Phil had done all of this before. Eugene Hartley was 76 years old and had retired to a quiet street in Savannah, Georgia, after a long career as a maritime insurance adjuster. His wife had passed in 2019, leaving him alone in a house full of memories and a financial estate valued at $2.5 million. His daughter, Nora, 43, visited regularly from Charleston, but could not be present every day. Phil Dawson, 67, lived 3 houses down and had filled that gap with a consistency that felt like genuine friendship. Over 18 months, Phil became the most constant presence in Eugene's daily life. He helped with yard work, sat with him through evenings, and gradually became the person Eugene called first when anything went wrong. Nora noticed her father seemed happier than he had been since her mother died. She never thought to look more closely at what was happening beneath that happiness. In April of 2022, Phil accompanied Eugene to meet with a notary he had personally arranged, introducing the man as a trusted contact who could help Eugene update his affairs. The document Eugene signed that afternoon was a complete will revision, removing Nora entirely and naming Phil as sole beneficiary of the full estate. Eugene was told it was a standard update to reflect his current wishes. He signed it without independent counsel present. Nora discovered the will 3 weeks after Eugene passed away in November of 2022, when the estate attorney read it aloud and Nora heard her own name missing from every line. She retained attorney Carol Sims, a probate litigator in Savannah. Carol began investigating Phil's background immediately and discovered something that changed the entire scope of the case. 7 years earlier, Phil had been named as the primary beneficiary in the revised will of another elderly widower on the same street, a man named Arthur Greer, who had passed away in 2015. Arthur's family had contested the will, but lacked sufficient evidence at the time to overturn it. The case had been quietly closed. Carol contacted Arthur Greer's surviving daughter, who provided documentation of the original dispute. The pattern was identical: prolonged friendship, gradual isolation from family, a notary Phil had personally arranged, a will signed without independent counsel. The hearing was held before the Honorable Judge Samuel Hatch at the Chatham County Probate Court. Carol Sims presented Eugene's medical records showing increasing cognitive vulnerability in the months before the signing, testimony from Nora describing the systematic reduction in her access to her father during Phil's period of influence, and the documented history of the identical pattern with Arthur Greer 7 years earlier. Phil's attorney argued Eugene had made a free and informed decision to reward a friend who had shown him genuine care. Carol Sims asked the court to consider how a free and informed decision could look identical in method, timing, and structure to a pattern Phil had already executed once before on the same street. Judge Samuel Hatch ruled the will invalid, finding clear evidence of undue influence and a deliberate pattern of predatory behavior targeting isolated elderly individuals. He referred Phil to the Chatham County District Attorney for elder financial exploitation. Given the documented pattern across 2 victims, Phil was charged with multiple counts. He was convicted and sentenced to 9 years in Georgia State Prison. Nora settled her father's estate and visited Arthur Greer's daughter to share what the court had finally confirmed. The two women had never met before. They sat together for a long time. Eugene Hartley spent his final years believing he had found a genuine friend. The court confirmed that what he had actually found was someone who had been looking for exactly what Eugene had. The sentence reflected that difference. Would you have recognized those warning signs before it was too late? Tell us in the comments below. And if this story moved you, subscribe to Court of Shadows for more courtroom drama stories every week.